Well, here we are on the Detroit River in Windsor, Ontario. This is my hometown. This is where I was born and more or less raised. And what I mean by more or less is that by the time I was 2 years old, we had relocated to Cincinnati, Ohio, and then up to Mississauga, back here to Windsor, amongst other places. You know, not all of us were brought up in a nuclear family with generational wealth. Some of us were brought up in the system. I don't know how many schools that I had been through in the course of a year sometimes. Um, it was a rare thing to finish an entire school year at the same school. You know, be it being raised by family, by friends of family, in foster homes. It wasn't always easy, but I do believe that it made for more resilience. You see, because as an adult, I found it very, very easy to pick up and go to where the work was, be it Calgary, Vancouver, Victoria, wherever else, back here in Windsor. Now, I had shared that with someone who was close to me, who more or less turned it around to say, well, that meant that I was unstable, that I didn't have any roots. And I took that to heart for a little while, thinking that there was something wrong with me, that I was less than. But, I'm not mad at that person. I'm actually kind of grateful because they caused me to look into who I am and where I am from. And what I've learned is that my immediate roots are one of the first black firefighters in Canada who worked his way all the way up to district chief before retiring, who spent a great deal of time on the school board and on city council. And when people asked him to become mayor, he decided that that wasn't his path. My roots go back to a great grandfather and two great uncles who served with the 2nd Construction Battalion in World War II. Even further back are the millions of Africans who survived the Belgian slave trade and came up to Canada through the Underground Railroad, and the millions more Indigenous who survived colonization, and more recently the residential schools, and are still fighting for their rights through missing and murdered Indigenous women and Every Child Matters organizations. My roots were forged in resilience, and I'm proud of that. So, again, just because you weren't born up on the same swath of land as your father and his father before him doesn't mean that you're less than. Being nomadic or migratory is nothing to be ashamed of. Look at the Maasai of Kenya, the Aboriginals of Australia, and closer to home, the Cheyenne and the Blackfoot, who followed the buffalo around for their sustenance. They weren't unstable. They certainly had roots. Don't let somebody tell you that you're less than just because you didn't come up like them. All right? Take care.